We're living in strange, uncertain times. There's a lot that's amazing about the world right now. There's a lot that's quite frightening and unpredictable. And within this kind of maze, this labyrinth of this unprecedented, confusing world, we've got to try and find a way to live a meaningful and purposeful life. Now, with Ascendance Coaching, I work with young people, and the reason that I have chosen to work with that demographic is I believe that if you can develop healthy habits when you're young, you carry them forward into adulthood. To share something personal with you, when I was 14, 15, um, like many teenagers, I wasn't happy, and you know, um, drinking alcohol was my solution. I was tall and I could get served, and that became my way of coping with the stresses of life and things that I'd been through. And that escalated, caused me a lot of problems, and ultimately it took me to really my mid to late 20s to start developing a really healthy mindset. Now, that's not to say that things are perfect now, but I would say that overall, there's certain things I've realised that it's actually not that complicated to live a happy and purposeful life, even with all the chaos, even with all the factors that you can't control, and even with your own demons, which, I have my own demons, but other people have been through far more. And, it's not about that. We've all got our own battle. So here are some of the things that have worked for me, and I genuinely believe would work for anyone. Number one, and this might seem like a really basic one, but it's really important. Go to the gym. Do some sort of physical exercise. I've got one of my best friends. He was a serious, he was doing all kinds of things, addictive habits, living a really crazy lifestyle, but he always kept up the gym, and he's completely sober now. He's living a completely clean sort of lifestyle, but even when he was doing all that, I remember him saying to me once, and he'd been through a lot of trauma. His life had been, he'd been through so much. And I remember him saying to me once, the gym is the one thing that's never let me down. You go to the gym, and unless you're actually physically injured or physically ill, ask yourself, have you ever left the gym and thought, oh, that was a bad idea, that was a mistake to do that? I would imagine that very few of you have ever thought that. And it doesn't have to be the gym. It can be going running, it can be any sort of physical movement, it can be working out at home. But some sort of physical exercise to get your endorphins running. If you're coming out of depression, for example, then it might just be going for a walk. Obviously, you build things up, like if you get to the point of being a serious athlete, you might be in the gym for 4 or 5 hours, but you don't have to suddenly jump to that. You build things up. But a lot of people, they don't do any kind of exercise or any kind of training, and they're sort of depressed, and the reality is, that could be a major cause. The second thing is practicing gratitude. Now, this can seem very difficult when you're in a dark place, and it feels like everything is going wrong. And, I've been in that place. I've got loved ones who are, who are going through much worse things than I've gone through, who have found themselves in that place. I think we all have at points where it feels like there's nothing to be grateful for. It feels like just life is a mess. But for pretty much anyone, there's something to be grateful. Even if it's as simple as, the sun is shining outside. Even if it's as simple as just, you've had a nice meal. Even if it's as big a thing, I would say, as, you know, things are a mess, but you've got a partner who loves you. These, you know, just actually maybe writing those things down, or, you know, I'm not religious, but saying a little prayer, just saying something, recognizing that yeah, there's some kind of gratitude going on. The third and final thing that I'm going to mention is simply finding a purpose, a mission, having a plan. And that does not have to be going to work. In fact, you know, I actually think that oftentimes people waste their lives concentrating on, you know, making other people money. Now, I'm not saying, you know, quit your job, but I'm saying find a purpose that is not connected to your obligations. So that could be that, you know, you want to pursue, let's say you played a musical instrument when you were younger. Maybe you used to play the guitar. You know, I used to play the guitar when I was younger. I haven't played in years. But I also used to write poetry when I was younger, and recently I've started writing again. And in actual fact, that, you know, I've got a few purposes going on. My company actually happens to be the main purpose, I would say. And because I feel like I'm doing something important, even making videos like this, that fills me with a sense of purpose. But it can be something a lot simpler. It can be just taking up something that you used to do and deciding, you know, I'm going to actually set a goal and trying to achieve that goal. So, just 3 simple things I've mentioned today. Setting that kind of purpose, which is not connected to what someone else wants for you, but what you want for you. Practicing gratitude, actually thinking about the things that you do have, and that's not underplaying the stuff that is going wrong. You know, you still can completely recognize that for what it is, and simultaneously practice gratitude and getting moving, whether that's getting in the gym or going for a walk in the park. I really do guarantee that if you do these 3 things, I'm not saying it's going to cure everything going wrong in your life. If you're in a really dark place, I'm not saying it's going to take you out of that dark place, but it can only move you in a positive direction. And yeah, that's got to be a good thing. And even if you're not in a dark place and you're not doing these things, I would say that if you do them, life will only get better. So I would really recommend doing those 3 things. And it's so simple and yet so powerful.